Hello and welcome to my Avengers Infinity War preview / thoughts on the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe to date before Infinity War, or something like that, and hopefully in quick fire, rapid fire fashion, just so I can get this video out before Infinity War comes out, because I want to do a review straight away, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm quite hyped for Infinity War, going to see the midnight premiere tonight. And so today I'm presenting you with this video where I'll go over my very brief thoughts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, and I would have loved to have gone deep with this and done a review for every movie, gone real in depth. I'm sure I could talk at least 10 to 15 minutes on every single film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which would be very, very long. And I know people have been doing it. They've been doing their own video retrospectives. They've been doing kind of Twitter threads and, kind of talking about how, they're revisiting all the films before Infinity War and how they feel about them now. I haven't had a chance to really revisit any of the films before Infinity War to kind of catch up. I've been far too busy, but most of them are fairly fresh, and I enjoy them all very much. There isn't really one I don't like, to be honest. That I really am a fan of all 18 of the films that have come out so far. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to go in chronological order from Phase 1 to Phase 2 to Phase 3 and give you my brief thoughts on each of the films. The first one, of course, we have is Iron Man, which, this one has really grown on me more and more every single time I see it. The first time I saw it, yeah, it's really good, but, not as special as people are making out. But the more I see it, the more I think it's one of the best kind of origin movies for a comic book character. It's the beginning of something huge. Where Robert Downey Jr. It's one of those roles that just is so indelibly linked to one person. Like, I could never see anyone playing Tony Stark again. It's just gonna be impossible to top that. He is so good, so funny, and the arc that he goes on, throughout all these films, it is really something interesting. I can't wait to see where it ends, and if it ends with the next two Avengers movies. But I love the first Iron Man film. Just really, really top-notch superhero stuff. The next one, I believe, chronologically, is The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. I like this film. My least favourite, I think, by far. It's the fact that it doesn't fit with all the other ones. It's kind of the problem where, Mark Ruffalo stepped in after Edward Norton, so it doesn't feel like it's a part of it, even though it is, which is a shame. I think this is kind of the weak link of the Marvel Cinematic. I know a lot of people really love this film too, but something about it just always stands out as not fitting the rest of the cog in the wheel or whatever. I've lost myself in an analogy. It doesn't even work. So next one is Iron Man 2. I really like this one. Mickey Rourke, he's a fun villain. Sam Rockwell, always amazing and everything. But it definitely does suffer of just there's something about it that just kind of dips towards the end and doesn't really end up being as memorable as the first one by far. I'm not sure which came first out of these two films. That we have the two 2011 releases from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Captain America: The First Avenger. Went to see this in the cinema and fell asleep halfway through for about 10 minutes. Not that I didn't like it, but it was just one of those days where I've been working a lot that week, I think. This one I've always really liked, and watching it again afterwards, really appreciated it, and I love Chris Evans' performance as Captain America in all of the films, and this first one, I just really love the different flavour it has being set in World War II, and yeah, I really like a lot about that film. Not crazy on the villain, Red Skull, but I just love the setting, and again how different it is, and although they probably went a bit too extreme with the CGI thin Chris Evans. Then we have Thor. Love Thor. Again, love Chris Hemsworth as Thor in all the movies, and this one I've gone back to quite a few times, and I really love this film. It's a great fish out of water story, and the acting is just top notch. Like it really feels like a Shakespearean actor directed this with Kenneth Branagh, and you have these great actors like Anthony Hopkins and Tom Hiddleston anchoring it with this real kind of high drama amidst all the fantasy and stuff, and then you have the comedy with Thor. And I just really like the balance of everything in this, even though it's one that not a lot of people love. And then finally we had The Avengers, which is a film that for me solidified that I was a fan of this, and it was really the build up to this coming out that made me go back and watch Iron Man for the first time and everything. And this was just such an amazing film when it came out, and still is now. I think it's one of the best comic book movies ever made. It's so much fun. All the characters are great, the writing is just so on point, the action scenes are fantastic and larger than life at the right moments. You get breathers, you get these big moments, and you come down again. There's hilarious moments. It's one of those films that I loved so much. I saw it a few times in the cinema, and it never gets old. I think this is still my favorite overall of all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. That's phase one. I'm not going to do any rankings or my favorite and anything like that because, well, I just told you that Avengers is my favorite, but I guess we'll do that as I go along and point out some of my more favorites. So, rolling into phase two, we had Iron Man 3. A lot of flack for this one. I love the twist in the middle. I think it's really funny. I've never really been a comic book fan of anything, really. Yeah, Batman maybe, but you know, so I don't really know any of the history, don't really know about the backstory of the Mandarin, so for me this just was really funny and different and unexpected, and I really loved showing Tony Stark's kind of PTSD over the events of the Avengers. That was really cool, and really funny too, and yeah, I've seen it a couple of times, and I just really like it a lot. Next one is, at one point, my favorite, like, standalone Marvel Cinematic Universe film, Thor: The Dark World. Another one a lot of people don't like. I love this film. When I first saw it, I halfway through I thought, this is like a new Star Wars or something. Having this take place in Asgard and take place over the 9 realms, or at least some of the 9 realms, delve into that idea of the mythology of the 9 realms and everything, I thought was so interesting. And seeing all these different, you know, universes or whatever you want to call them, the different dimensions, and then the fight scene at the end where they're literally just fighting through these different dimensions. I love that so much. Yeah, maybe there's a few bits with the Earth section of the film that aren't the best, but I love Thor: The Dark World. I really do, and it is one of my favorites of the whole series. Then we have The Winter Soldier. Went to see this in New York. Hell of a cinema experience. When it was revealed that the Winter Soldier was Bucky, people lost their shit. Like, literally like, oh, hell no! Oh, shit! Like, people were going nuts, and I was just like, well, it was obvious that Bucky was the Winter Soldier, but hey, this is fun. Yeah, I love the atmosphere. And this is one I saw, thought it was great, and then everyone's like, this is the best one, this is incredible, like, this is the Dark Knight of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm just like, well, hang on a minute, wasn't that good? And then I watched it again a few years later, I was like, oh, it was that good? Like, it's really one of the best made Marvel films, if not even the best made Marvel film, just as a standalone movie. So well executed, and you know, Chris Evans is great, but there's so many moving parts in this film that are really great too, and definitely one of the highlights of the whole thing. Then we have Guardians of the Galaxy, which everyone loved so much, and I really enjoyed, but had a few issues with. I'll never be able to get over Dance Off Bro. That to me just kind of dissipated so much of everything I was kind of getting invested in towards the end. You know, the whole "We Are Groot," like, oh my god, you know, something in my eye, and then, you know, Dance Off Bro. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing? I just feel like the humor at times just pushed it a little bit too far for my own personal tastes. But I've seen it a few times, and I do love it. I love Groot, I love Rocket Raccoon, Drax, you know, it's been so great to see Dave Bautista kind of have the career that he's turning out to have now. I think it's so well deserved. And he was someone I didn't like a lot to begin with, and I really have come around on him in more ways than one. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy, so much fun, such a breath of fresh air at the time, you know, and again, some of those the over-the-top humor at times does take me out of it just a tiny bit, but it's still one that I do really enjoy going back to again and again. And then we have the Avengers: Age of Ultron, which again, a lot of people didn't like. I loved this film, and every time I see it again, I'm like, yeah, it's as great as I remembered. You know, there's some really great stuff here. It's not as good as the first one, Avengers, and I do feel like it really does show that Joss Whedon was kind of battling with Kevin Feige a little bit, or with the powers that be. This didn't feel like a full vision, no pun intended, like the Avengers was. It did feel like there was maybe too many cooks in the kitchen, but I love so many of the new elements introduced, and I think just the set piece at the end is so incredible, and putting the emphasis on protecting the civilians and stuff. I just love all that kind of angle that gets introduced with some of the later films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it started with this one, really, which may almost be a response to kind of the Man of Steel controversy. But I love Age of Ultron. You know, it's not one of the best, but it's one that I certainly love going back to whenever I do. And then finally, rounding out Phase 2, we have Ant-Man. I love Ant-Man. It's it's one again that I'd never heard of this character, didn't know how it was going to work. It was more interesting when Edgar Wright was going to be directing it, but I still think it's such a fun film. And another one that's a bit of a change of pace, you know, and Michael Douglas is great in this. I've always loved Paul Rudd. He's one of those comedic actors I can see rubbing people the wrong way. For me, I just really find him funny and entertaining and endearing as well, and likable and relatable as this everyman who falls into this situation. The special effects are great, the comedy's great. This is just such a fun film. Big fan of Ant-Man. And then we move into Phase 3 with Captain America Civil War. I do feel like when we get to that kind of airport fight sequence, there's not much consequence there. It really is just kind of just kind of stroking off, like, look at all these characters we got, isn't this great? They're gonna fight each other, it doesn't matter, you know. But it is a lot of fun, you know, and there's a lot of funny moments, but also there's some really heavy stuff towards the end of this film. I love the third act of this film, and I loved the villain, played by Daniel Bruhl, who's great, and I liked how it was a different kind of villain. Loved Civil War, was really not disappointed by it at all. And then we had Doctor Strange. Only seen it the once, but loved it again. Just thought it was different, and again loved the climax of this film with a very different kind of hero versus villain confrontation. That was great, and looking forward to seeing that one again and showing it to my mum, because she watches most of these and she hasn't seen that one yet. Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Really liked it, almost more than the first one, I thought. And again, this one is another one that people are kind of up and down about. I think the David Hasselhoff cameo is one of the just worst, most ill-advised things ever done in a film. I think you had the darkest moment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe when Ego said to Star-Lord, it really killed me to put that tumor in your mother's head. And then he turns into David Hasselhoff 10 seconds later, and it just kind of ruins the moment. People are laughing in the cinema. I'm like, what are you doing? But then he redeems himself, James Gunn, the director, by the ending, which is just so beautiful and just heart-wrenching and heartwarming at the same time. You know, there's a real heart to these films. The Guardians ones, I think, and I love the characters. And I love Kurt Russell too, so I did love this film, to be fair. But again, there always seems to be, with me and the Guardians films, there's always just this one or two moments, and just the humour seems to kind of just stop it from being the full package. Then we had Spider-Man Homecoming, which I loved. Again, different flavour, breath of fresh air, and a different kind of Spider-Man that I was really on board for. I thought Michael Keaton was fantastic as the villain. I loved his motivations. It felt believable to me. I enjoyed the inclusion of Tony Stark, and I thought Tom Holland was great as Spider-Man. It was just a really fun kind of teen movie. I don't know, it might even be the best Spider-Man movie, but not the best movie that is about Spider-Man. My heart is still with the Sam Raimi movies, I think. And then after that, I don't have the further additions. We had Thor Ragnarok, which is either my #1 or #2. So funny. You take a director who puts his complete stamp on it, and that's what Taika Waititi did with Thor Ragnarok. Hilarious. I love Jeff Goldblum in it. I love the development of Thor. Hulk, you know, it's such a fun kind of science fiction, kind of off-the-wall humor film. It feels like Buckaroo Banzai or something, and it just all these kind of different kind of wacky films put into a blender and then done in a Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love Cate Blanchett. It's an incredible film. And then finally Black Panther, which I've only seen once, and I had a bad kind of cinema experience with it, so I feel like I need to see it again. I talked about it in my review for that, if you haven't seen that, before I fully commit to an opinion on it, but I think it is one of my favourites, Black Panther. Something, it's interesting because the more I move towards the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, going in chronological order, I feel like more risks are being taken, or at least more attempts to do different things. And I think it may have kind of stemmed from Age of Ultron, where they tried to put themselves on top of Joss Whedon a little bit and say, no, do it like this, and it didn't turn out the best. And so they're like, okay, let's let them kind of do their thing. Look at, you know, Thor Ragnarok. That is Taika Waititi making his kind of film in the Marvel, you know, cinematic universe. Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, James Gunn is doing his thing. And so I think that the Russo brothers, I think they very much fall under the kind of umbrella of two guys who can, incredible filmmakers, and they can make it kind of how, you know, Marvel wants it. But then you have these offshoots which they just have, I hate to keep saying different flavors, but that's what it is. And I just come off as a raging fanboy here, but and I hate that fanboy needs to be a negative term, but I just love how these things they're starting to feel more different every time, and so you go from Civil War, where I was like, okay, maybe I'm starting to feel the superhero fatigue just a little bit. This is a great film, very well done, but it's getting a little bit samey. And then after that, we kind of move into films like Doctor Strange. Oh, this is different, you know. And then what would be after that? I just was doing them then. Then Guardians of the Galaxy 2. You know, this is a little bit different, or you know, in the vein of Guardians of the Galaxy, but it has its own stamp on it. And then like, you know, Thor Ragnarok and Spider-Man. So okay, these are different kinds of movie. You got like a teen movie, you got like a wacky science fiction comedy, you know, and so we're seeing different lenses placed over these films. I really like that. So yeah, I think my all-time favourites of the 18 films so far would be Avengers, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther's up there, but well, it's difficult. You know, there's a lot that I like, and they're interchangeable too. There's kind of like, you know, do I like Spider-Man more than Doctor Strange? I don't know. You know, there's little things like that, but you know, Winter Soldier, I think, and maybe Civil War. I really love Civil War. So yeah, I think those are kind of my top 5. Would be Avengers, Thor Ragnarok, Civil War, Winter Soldier, and Black Panther, with, you know, Spider-Man Homecoming probably trailing not far behind, and Age of Ultron actually is way up there too. So there we go. That's my kind of Marvel Cinematic Universe. Very brief. Well, not brief for me. You know, I tried to make it brief, but it's me, so it's going to turn out fairly long. And look forward to my Avengers Infinity War review. The whole thing feels very slapdash and thrown together, but hopefully you enjoyed it. And I would like to go more in depth, so I think maybe for next year, leading into Avengers 4, which I feel like is going to be like the proper end of this kind of phase of Phase 3. I think that I could do like a full rewind and actually do a review or a video on each movie. That'd be really fun. If you'd like to see that, maybe, I don't know. Although it feels like a lot of work at the same time, I don't know. But anyway, I would like to have done it for Avengers Infinity War. No time whatsoever to do that, but it'd be a nice pipe dream to maybe do it for next year. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video, which will be, hopefully, my Infinity War review. So there you go.
It's alright by me. Apart from the fact he throws cans of Carlin into a tree. Yeah, he's really cool. Yeah, he's really cool. But he's not quite as cool as you, 'cause